Hi there, I'm Dave Schwartz, the Neon Museum's 2020 Scholar in Residence, and I'd like to welcome you to go on this virtual tour of the museum with me. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about how the early corporate era unfolded. The Sahara sign, which we see behind us here, is a good example of how, in the corporate era, the casinos evolved. Del Webb bought the Sahara. Del Webb was probably the first publicly traded company to own a Nevada casino. Eventually, they owned 5 casinos in Nevada and the Claridge in Atlantic City. That was before they got rid of all their casinos in the 1980s to focus on real estate. So this Sahara sign shows really that transition where you can see it still has a lot of personality with the camels, with the lettering. Next to it, we have the Desert Inn, which is very not deserty, very not Southwest looking, very corporate, very buttoned up. And this is appropriate because Desert Inn was the casino that Howard Hughes moved into in 1966 before he bought that casino in 1967. And this is what got him into buying casinos all over Las Vegas. So the Desert Inn really was, you could say, the place where corporate Las Vegas casinos were born. So on our left here, we have a sign that really is the epitome of pre-corporate Las Vegas, and that is the Stardust. Stardust is interesting. Howard Hughes tried to buy it in 1968. The state gave him permission, but the federal government said no, for antitrust reasons. He could not buy the Stardust, so that didn't happen. Now, if he had bought the Stardust, we wouldn't have had one of the great Las Vegas movies, which is Casino. Martin Scorsese's Casino is based on the real-life story of the Stardust and Lefty Rosenthal and the skimming scandals that happened there. So these happened in the late 70s. New owners came in. Those owners are also accused of skimming, of siphoning off funds and sending it to people outside of Nevada. So the state called on the Boyd Group to take over. This is Sam and Bill Boyd. They'd run successful casinos in Henderson and downtown. They first took over the casino in 1983, and they finally bought it in 1985. And the company went public in 1993. And by that point, they'd really put their stamp on the Stardust. They'd added a 32-story tower, and they'd changed the sign. So originally, the sign had this fanciful space-age script, very much an artifact of the 1950s. They changed it to that boxy lettering, not quite as exciting, not quite as fanciful, very businesslike and very corporate. As we start in the last phase of our tour, we're going to talk about how the early corporate period transitioned into the mega resort era. And of course, it happened in 1989 with the opening of the Mirage. Steve Wynn built that. It was the first really true mega resort to be built all at once in the Strip. It had a lot more gaming than non-gaming. A lot of things about it were different. One of the subtle things about it that was different was that Steve Wynn did not like neon. He didn't think it looked classy. So the Mirage wasn't really known for its neon, like a casino like the Dunes or Frontier had been earlier. The Mirage was known for having a giant volcano in front of it and for having a rainforest. That's really that corporate difference there. They could just do stuff that the old casino owners couldn't even dream of. For his next casino, Steve Wynn really went for an immersive theme, and that was Treasure Island, which of course was based on pirates. Now, the big thing about Treasure Island was they had a giant pirate battle that went on outside the casino several times a night. They also, though, had a really distinctive sign that had so much personality. There was a giant skull with crossed swords. It was really, really cool. But all good things come to an end, and the new owners, MGM Resorts, didn't really like that pirate motif being so in your face, so they decided to de-pirate it, de-bootify it. And in 2003, they took down this sign, and they replaced it with a sign that was a lot more straightforward, just the letters TI, not a lot more to it besides that. Fortunately, they had the foresight to donate this to the Neon Museum, so it's preserved here, but it's no longer on the Strip. So far, we've talked a lot about the Las Vegas Strip, But downtown really is a world of its own as far as neon and the neon art goes. And we can see here the Sassy Sally sign, which is a good example of how perfectly scaled the streetscape of Fremont Street in downtown was for neon, where you could have neon just wrapping all around the buildings and it fit in perfectly. Now the Fitzgerald sign here is another really good example of this, and this is a hotel, a casino that has an interesting story. It originally opened as the Sundance. It was built by Mo Dalitz. Dalitz was the man behind the Desert Inn. Even though Wilbur Clark's name was in the marquee, Mo Dalitz was the one who basically got the financing together for it and was responsible for running it. He sold out, of course, to Howard Hughes in 1967. Then later on in life, he decided to build the Sundance. He ran into some licensing trouble there, and it was sold to Fitzgerald's, which was a casino from Reno. They renamed it Fitzgerald's. Then, in 2012, Derek Stevens bought it, and it became the D, which it is still today. Now, it's very fitting that we close our virtual tour here with letters from the Moulin Rouge. Moulin Rouge, when it opened in 1955, was the first major integrated casino resort in Las Vegas. All the other casinos in downtown on the Strip before this had been segregated. This one was racially integrated. This is 1955. It closed shortly after it opened, but 5 years later in 1960, an agreement was signed there that permanently desegregated the gaming industry in Las Vegas. And these elements of the Moulin Rouge sign are a good reminder to us of what valuable work the Neon Museum does in preserving the neon history of Las Vegas. It's a very important part of our community, and we should be very grateful that there's people who are preserving it. Thank you for joining me in this tour. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you at the Neon Museum soon.